I really want to welcome all of you today to this year's celebration of life. As you all know, this is an event that actually is taking place around the world today, and it's to celebrate survivors from cancer. We've been doing this for a long time, and I must say that it's one of the highlights of the year for me. We do a lot around research and treatment of cancer here at the Loma University Cancer Center, but all that we do is really focused around having survivors from cancer. So I really want to welcome you today. I think we have a great program for you today. As always, we will have some stories from courageous patients like all of you, and some inspirational words about resiliency. So again, I want to welcome you today, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reeves, for that introduction. I'd now like to introduce an inspiring story by our survivor, Brett Richards.
My name's Brett Richards. I'm born and raised in Southern California, doing outdoor sports.
Brett and I actually met when we were in high school. I was 16 and he was 15, so babies.
Growing up was fairly tough for me. My dad committed suicide when I was like 18, which was horrible, of course. Having the spinal cord injury, I had a motorcycle accident. I was out in the desert with some friends, and I was airlifted to UMC Las Vegas, had my spine fused, and ended up coming back to Loma after that surgery for rehab. 3 or 4 years after my accident, I got my first bike and really enjoyed it. It just kind of naturally became a 5-day-a-week, 6-day-a-week thing where it was all I thought about. I went to work and I rode the bike. I had a coach. Really, the ultimate goal was getting to the Paralympics. That's what every paracyclist wants. They want to go to the Paralympics. I had a sponsorship with Team Possibilities through Loma University, and they were basically working me towards that goal. So yeah, we were working on that for, 6 years solid. Yeah, when I was diagnosed with leukemia, it came out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere. Urinary tract infections are really common with people with spinal cord injuries. I've had a few of them in the past, so I know what they feel like. And when I was diagnosed with leukemia, it totally felt like I was getting a UTI. I was a little bit run down, definitely fatigued, but I was always fatigued because I was always cycling 5-6 days a week. I just went in because I thought I had a UTI. And then, they say you have acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
It was hard to hear, and obviously I don't want him to have to go through any more life challenges. He's had his share, but it was unreal. As a nurse, I understood what that meant, but I still had a ton of questions, and no matter how much it's still scary, and it's still a lot of unknown.
When I was diagnosed, I didn't know if I had 6 months or a year, or I had no idea, that first 24, 48 hours. I don't know what's gonna happen. The doctors don't know. They haven't finished all their tests yet. I've had some bad things happen to me, so it's like, all right, here's another fight. We gotta fight, let's do it. Once we had a treatment plan, we knew what we were going to do moving forward, then it's like, all right, let's do this, let's fight it. I spent about a month in the hospital, and they attacked the leukemia really hard. Moving forward, I got some UTIs. I had a terrible bout with pneumonia, and in March of 2020, when COVID hit, I had a couple weeks where I did stay in the hospital, and it was totally different. being there by yourself, not being able to have family or friends come in, it's different. It's tough not having your family next to you.
Oh, it's so stressful, if I can be honest. Not being able to see him in person. I have my little system where I can look at him and say like, okay, he looks better, he looks worse, he looks the same. On the phone, he'll always say like, oh, I'm doing good. And it's like, are you really doing good? So it was hard, but they made every effort to help us connect, and the physicians and the nurses, they still took really good care of him, even though, nobody could come in and see him.
Knowing that I was going to Loma Linda for treatment, I had full confidence in him. And thank goodness my whole treatment has gone through them. I mean, everything from the pharmacist to the linen guy, he'd hang out and chat for a while in the room. Even the doctors, they would stop by after they're off the clock and just say, oh, I didn't see you today. I just wanted to stop and say hi before I left.
They really treated both of us like family. For how scary the diagnosis was, we would remind each other, like, I'm so glad we're here.
Luckily, we're getting extremely close to the end of my treatment. We have a little over a year left at this point of chemo, but it should be smooth sailing. Fingers crossed. I'm able to push it a little bit more. Being outdoors and on the bike, there's just nothing like it. You feel normal not being in your wheelchair, which is just great. It's good for the soul.
It's been a little bit bumpy, like Brett explained, but I think he's stronger, healthier, mentally, physically. Moving forward, we have plans to do camping and going out and enjoying ourselves, road trips.
Cycling in as many places as I can, really. Just getting around, enjoying the United States and beyond, and just enjoying life, really, moving forward.
Thank you so much, Brett, for sharing your story. I'd like to welcome back Dr. Reeves, the Cancer Center Director, for some updates.
It's my pleasure to tell you a few things about what is happening in the Loma Linda University Cancer Center. As I think all of you know, we are on a pathway to NCI designation. And this is really an exciting thing that is starting to really change how we treat and do research for patients with cancer. I think many of you know about this already, but I'll just remind you that some of the things about NCI designation are all really focused together to make it so that new discoveries that we make in the lab are quickly translated into new and exciting patient care. I want to just tell you about two specific ones that are particularly exciting for me because we anticipate that these programs will be finished this year and be online. So the first one is an initiative called diagnostics. This is really an exciting platform that allows us to do both targeted imaging of cancers and then also precision therapy of these same cancers. So diagnostics comes from the words therapy and diagnostics. So that's where you get the word theranostics from. What we do is we have molecules that our scientists have created in the laboratory that can seek out cancers specifically. And then what we do is we hook a molecule to those compounds that we can use to actually see in imaging. And so when we do imaging of a particular patient with cancer, we can actually see, is your cancer in only one place? Is it in more than one place in the body? But then maybe even more important is that we take that same compound then and we hook another molecule to it that actually will deliver radiation and destroy the cancer. And so what we do is after we've imaged with that compound, we'll then give the patient that compound and it'll go and find the cancer wherever it is in the body and then deliver radiation to it and destroy it. We call it a seek and destroy type of an approach. The thing that's so exciting about this is that it is very, very specific for each person's cancer. And it doesn't just indiscriminately find cells that are normal and attack them. This theranostics initiative, we're building a whole program around this, planning to have a center that, as I said before, we think will be finished this year. And we'll be ready to treat patients, we think, in about December of this year. We're already starting to see patients in consultation and preparation for that now. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about is our program that we're building in cellular therapy. So cellular therapy is again, a new, very cutting-edge scientific initiative where we use a patient's own cells actually to then turn them against the cancer that they have. And again, as was true for theranostics, this is a very, very specific process for each patient. There are many ways that you can use cell therapy. One of the ones that is exciting to me, and you've probably heard about this, there are a few treatments that are starting to come online for this called CAR T, or chimeric antigen receptor T cells. What we do is we harvest a patient's own cells, so this is your own cells, and then we put in a copy of a molecule that will seek out your own cancer. And then we infuse these cells that have been modified like this back into you. And those cells, using a similar kind of a seek and destroy approach, will go and find the cancer wherever it is in your body and actually destroy it. There are a number of ways that you can use this type of cellular therapy to seek and destroy cancer cells. And so another possibility for this is using what are called tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. Many patients' cancers have actually already created their own cells that are trying to destroy the cancer, but they can't quite do it because the cancer figures out ways to prevent those cells from recognizing it. Again, what we do is we take those cells out of the patient, your own cells, and then we reprogram the cells so that they can then not be fooled by the cancer anymore, and they can actually see it, seek it out, and destroy the cancer. So these two initiatives, theranostics and cell therapy, again, you can see that these are exciting treatment modalities that really come from the laboratory. We're translating them into patient care to completely change how we treat patients with cancer. And so I think that as we continue along our pathway to NCI designation, you're going to be seeing these and other exciting initiatives for how we continue to treat patients with cancer in new, precise, and cutting edge ways so that, again, we get to our goal of having more cancer survivors. Thank you.
It's my pleasure today to present the Courage to Care Award to a recipient that's been selected by her peers, actually. So this award was established by the Kretz family. They had a son, Donnie, who was in his early 20s and was being treated with leukemia here at Loma Linda University Medical Center. During that time, they talked about the difference that nursing care made to their son's experience, how besides providing just competent, excellent care, they were with him. They were present, and they were present when the family was not able to be, and just how much that meant to his healing and the care that was delivered to him. So as a legacy and a tribute to their son, Donnie Kretz, they established a fund that we will be able to select every year, one inpatient and one outpatient oncology nurse to receive this award. So it's my privilege to welcome today Emily Ensley. And we're so happy to be able to have Emily on the team doing the work that she does. So congratulations, Emily, on the award that you've been granted by your peers.
Thank you.
Maybe you can tell me a little bit about what attracted you to oncology nursing, and then maybe some things that have surprised you now that you've had, almost 5 years of experience working with cancer patients.
Sure. I don't know. I always say that oncology sort of picked me. I wasn't sure exactly which nursing route I wanted to go, but they welcomed me on the oncology unit, and it was just a wonderful gift, I think. Some things that surprised me were, a lot of people say, oh, it must be difficult in oncology because people are very sick and things like that. But I think something that surprised me the most was just how much of a gift it was, because I was able to see the resiliency of what people, of humans really. You get to see when posed with this very heavy weight and this very heavy and scary burden, they're able to still find hope and peace and joy. And sometimes they're able to encourage us as the nurses. So I think that's one of the most surprising things, but it's such a blessing as well. So I'm grateful for all of the people I get to take care of, because I feel like they bring joy to me, and just all of the nurses that I get to work with every day as well. They're so inspiring, and that just being on that floor and being able to take care of these patients is such a gift, and it's so inspiring every day. So I'm honored to work there and to go and to work with the team and to work with those patients every single day.
Wow, that's wonderful, Emily. Maybe share with us a little bit about any maybe kind of pearls of wisdom that you have learned from your patients that, you talked about how the patients inspire you. Is there a point or two that you would think would be helpful to the audience about, what you've learned from your patients?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that they show us every day. But I think what I have learned and what I take away from my job every day is just basically, in simple terms, like, don't sweat the small stuff. Life is short, and we're given our time here, and we're given trials, and we're given hard times, but do everything that we can to find the joy in each day, no matter what we're posed with, and also too that your joy and your happiness can come from even the smallest things. So just finding joy in small things and little victories every day. I think that's what they've shown me the most, is just being able to have good lab results one day is joyful for them, and it brings them hope, it brings them peace. And even though it may be small, I think that it's just so cool to see that going through something so scary, the littlest joys just bring them hope and get them through the day. So that would be what I would say. I try to do that, just find little victories in each day, no matter what you're going through, and just try to find joy in that and move forward.
Wow. Well, what a pleasure, Emily. So glad you're here. So grateful for the care that you deliver, and just wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Pastor Randy Roberts, Senior Pastor of Loma Linda University Church.
Friends, it's a privilege for me to join you on this occasion and at this event. Not even having had the privilege and the opportunity of meeting and speaking with you, I already have a great deal of respect and appreciation for you. Let me tell you why I say that. I spent about 7.5 years as a chaplain on 2 cancer units here at Loma Linda University Medical Center, 9200 and 9300. In those days, and if I'm not mistaken, this is still the case, they were medical and surgical oncology. Over the years that I spent on 92 and 93, I had many experiences, learned many lessons from many different patients and staff. I came to love and to care about the people that I worked with in deep ways. They taught me a great deal about life, about death, about suffering, about God, and about people. While they were some of the harder years of my life, they were also some of the most meaningful. And one of the things those years and those dear friends taught me was a respect for people who struggle against what can sometimes seem like insurmountable odds. And one of the other lessons that came right along with that one had to do with resiliency. Resiliency. Now, immediately when we hear a word like that, we wonder, well, what exactly does that mean? We hear about resiliency in a whole variety of different ways. Sometimes it's called resilience, sometimes resiliency. I looked it up in the dictionary to make sure. And sure enough, there it is in both forms. People talk about it differently. For example, in sports, they'll talk about it as leaving everything on the court, leaving everything on the field. In other words, I put everything I have into that. I didn't spare one iota of effort or energy. I persevered. That's resilience. I hung in there till the very end. Sometimes resilience is what my dad used to call having stick-to-itiveness. I don't even know if that word's in the dictionary, but stick-to-itiveness was what he would sometimes talk with us about. It's the ability to persevere, to hang in there, to stay with it to the very end. I did decide to look up on dictionary.com the meaning of the word, so let me read you 2 definitions that dictionary.com gives to the word resiliency. The first one is that resiliency is the power or ability of a material to return to its original form or position after being bent, compressed, or stretched. You can bend it, stretch it, press it, and yet it will ultimately return to its form. That's resilience. Here's the second definition: the ability of a person to adjust to or recover readily from illness, adversity, major life change. So it seems like whether you're talking about an object or a person, it has to do with that ability to stick to things and to return to the form in which you were. That's a tall order, isn't it? But rather than reading dictionary definitions to talk about resilience, I'd like to share 2 or 3 or 4 stories that I think are illustrative of this thing called resilience or resiliency. The first one is available on YouTube, I suspect. I saw it on a news channel. I would love to be able to show it to you today, but you can find it if you Google it. A travel blogger and his wife were joined by a group of people, probably friends, traveling down in Antarctica. In this particular video, they're all in those rubber dinghies, those kind of rubber ships, blow-up craft. They're pretty large. They can hold 10, 12, maybe 14 people. And they're kind of just driving slowly around among all the icebergs when they spot a rather fascinating event unfolding. There's a penguin, a solitary solo penguin, who at first is just swimming, but then becomes the object of interest to a pod of killer whales. The killer whales turn and take off after this penguin. The penguin immediately recognizes that he's in mortal danger and begins to swim extremely fast. I don't know if you ever watched penguins, but they dive and they move. Well, so do killer whales. And they were after the penguin. Well, people had their cameras out, their phones out, and they're filming this life or death struggle that is unfolding in the water right around them. The penguin is fast enough to be able to move. The orca whales are coming after the penguin, and the penguin must begin to tire. He's going to need some resiliency if he's going to recover from this, going to survive this. Then the penguin turns toward one of the rubber dinghies and suddenly realizes, if I can make it onto that boat, I'll be safe. So he makes a run at the boat, launches himself out of the water, slams into the boat, and falls back into the water. The orcas are closing. Swims around again, builds up some speed, and this time manages to get just high enough on the boat that one of the people actually reaches out and pulls it in, and he falls right into the center of the boat. And then you have a group of people all seated around the outside of the dinghy, quiet, not wanting to scare the penguin, watching with phones and cameras focused as the penguin kind of shakes himself out, makes sure he's still got all of his parts, he's still alive, and then looks rather curiously at the people around him. They're talking quietly now. They're admiring this penguin's resilience. It saved his life. After just a bit of time, he jumps up on the side, slips into the water, and is gone. Gone to live another day. Because of his resilience, staying with it until he could get into the boat. That's a picture of resilience, isn't it? Trying and leaving no attempt untested or untried until maybe success comes. Or think about another incident, this one involving the Navy Admiral, retired Navy Admiral actually, Admiral William H. McRaven, 36-year Navy SEAL veteran. He's giving the commencement address at the University of Texas at Austin. He's talking to these students about their life up ahead. He gives an address entitled 10 Lessons to Change the World. Here's one of his lessons. I want to read this one to you. Listen to what Admiral McRaven said. Every day during training, you were challenged with multiple physical events. Long runs, long swims, obstacle courses, hours of calisthenics. Something designed to test your mettle. Every event had standards, times you had to meet. If you failed to meet those standards, your name was posted on the list, and at the end of the day, those on the list were invited to a circus. A circus was 2 hours of additional calisthenics designed to wear you down, to break your spirit, to force you to quit. No one wanted a circus. A circus meant that for that day you didn't measure up. A circus meant more fatigue, and more fatigue meant that the following day would be more difficult, with more circuses likely. Listen to how Admiral McRaven sums up. But at some time during SEAL training, everyone made the circus list. But an interesting thing happened to those who were constantly on the list. Over time, those students who did 2 extra hours of calisthenics got stronger and stronger. The pain of the circuses built inner strength, built physical resiliency. Life is filled with circuses, says Admiral McRaven. You will fail. You will likely fail often. It will be painful. It will be discouraging. At times, it will test you to your very core. But if you want to change the world, don't be afraid of the circuses. He's speaking to graduates facing life up ahead. You're in a different class. You're facing extreme physical challenges, uncertainties about life up ahead. I'll never forget years ago reading a study conducted in a cardiac lab not in Houston, but in San Antonio, Texas. A study that showed that those patients who just accepted the news that they were given and gave up consistently did far worse than those who said, I will fight with everything I have. In other words, those who manifested resiliency. So it could be that you ask, well, where do I get the strength for that? Where do I find the ability to have that kind of resilience? Well, I want to tell you about another person. Another person that I've studied over the years and have come to sincerely and deeply appreciate. His name was Paul. The Apostle Paul of Scripture. I want to tell you just about one verse. I might read 2 or 3 around it, but principally one verse in which Paul writes something stunning, and it's about resiliency. So here's the background. Paul is writing a letter to his friends in the church in the ancient city of Philippi. Paul's circumstances as he writes this letter are very discouraging. He's in prison. He's been imprisoned by the Roman Empire for his faith. His future is very much in question, not because of his health, but because of his heresy, according to the church of the day and the empire of his world. It looked like Paul would not survive, and indeed, at one point, he does not. He sits imprisoned, and it's while he's imprisoned, with his future in doubt, that he writes this short 4-chapter letter to the Philippians. What's stunning is that it's Paul's most joyful letter. Everywhere you read in the letter, it seems like joy is just leaping off the page at you. He says things like, I will tell you to rejoice, and then again I'll say rejoice. It's all over the letter. It seems like he just bubbles over with enthusiasm and optimism, almost to where you want to say, Paul, I don't get it. Everything about your world and your life right now looks dark, looks bad. How are you so positive? Well, it's because he's learned what he calls a secret. It comes in the 4th chapter of his letter to the Philippians. The 4th chapter, where he talks about what it is that allows him to face life in this fashion. I'm going to read 2 or 3 verses before this, but then I'm going to point out the especially important verse. So Philippians chapter 4, he says, verse 10, I rejoiced greatly, there you go, there's that word again, in the Lord, that at last you renewed your concern for me. In other words, I was so happy when you showed you still had an interest in my well-being. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. He says, in fact, I found out you were concerned about my situation all along. You just hadn't had the chance to let me know about it. I'm not saying this, he says, because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. What? Content whatever the circumstances? How do you do that? Because if one can be content whatever the circumstances, that's true resiliency. Well, he continues, I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I know the whole experience, but I've learned how to be content. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I've learned that secret. That's true resiliency. So what is the secret, Paul? Now comes the verse. It's a well-known verse among people who happen to follow Jesus. Philippians 4, verse 13. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. That's Paul's secret of resiliency. I have a sense, he says, no matter what my circumstances, good or bad, foreboding or joyful, I have a sense that He holds me in the grip of His grace, in the palm of His hand, that I abide under the shadow of His presence, and I'm content. And because of that, He has resilience. There are many places from which you can draw strength as you face what you're facing, whether you're a patient yourself, whether you're a family member, whether you're a staff member who's given your life to caring for people who need resilience. You can draw strength from friends, from exercise, from being in the great outdoors, from what you read, many places that will help you build resiliency. I want to suggest that Paul's secret may be especially worth checking out. I can do all things through the one who gives me strength. When our son Austin was in college at a place called Walla Walla University, he was in the men's dorm there, and I went to see him a whole number of times, but on one occasion when I went to see him, I was walking around the hallway outside of his room and noticed a poster up on the wall. It was a poster that showed a canyon. And down at the bottom of the canyon, as is often the case, was a river. When you looked at the picture, it looked as though the river had actually been the knife that had cut through this solid rock and made a canyon. I was caught by the caption on the poster. It said, "In the struggle between the river and the rock always loses, the river always wins. And the river wins not because of its strength, but because of its resilience." That can be you, by the grace of God. You can do all things through Him who gives you strength. You can have resilience in what you face today. Gracious God, be with these friends. I wish I was in person with them, but through this medium called technology, our lives touch. I pray your grace and peace and strength for each of them. Give them resilience. Amen.
We're now going to be able to enjoy some special music by Loma Linda University Church, Anthem.
Have you ever been afraid of the darkness after day? Have you ever lost all hope? He is strong, He is strong. Have you ever felt the pain when a loved one passed away? Have you ever dried a tear? He is strong, He is strong. In the midst of the storm, my God, He is strong. My Savior, Redeemer, my Father, my Healer, my God, my Rock, you are strong. My fortress, my defender, in storms of night, my deliverer,
I really want to thank all of you for joining us today. I don't know about you, but I was really, really inspired by, and I am every year, but by being able to hear stories of patients who've overcome so much and being able to fight and beat their cancer. And then also the message of resiliency. Thank you, Pastor Roberts. So good, as always. You know, I think one of the most important things that I enjoy every year at Celebration of Life is being able to be together with patients who've survived cancer. I know we weren't able to do that in person this year. I know that we'll be able to do that next year. And so I'm really, really looking forward to seeing all of you next year in person at our Celebration of Life event. Remember, it's the first Sunday of June. And so on the first Sunday of June in 2022, we'll plan to see you in person. So again, thank you for coming and joining us today, and have a good rest of today and the year. Bye-bye.